when I think we spend a lot of our time on autopilot. Sometimes we just get in this routine and we're used to, okay, I'm getting up, going out for the day, I'm going to my job, I'm coming home. But when something disrupts us, like a breakup or a divorce, any sort of ending, it causes us to reflect and look at all areas of our life. And so when they're really doing that inner work and they're saying, you know what, I'm actually not happy in this job. Why am I here? And this is the perfect moment to really create whatever life you want for yourself. This is the best moment.
Why is it the best moment?
So when you're going through heartbreak, or like when I went through my divorce, for example, I thought it was the worst moment.
Yeah.
The worst thing I've ever been through. But then now on the other side of it, I realized the life that I chose to create for myself, all of the healing I got to do, it was like a clean slate. You know, like I was like, okay, you know what? What I thought was never going to happen to me and what I thought at the time was the worst thing to happen to me, that was my mindset. It actually gave way to me stepping into my purpose and what I'm doing now. Had I not gone through that period, I would not be where I am today, coaching women, helping people around the world, living a new life like in Mexico City. And so, when we reach rock bottom, that's when we get the chance to like come out and create something entirely new.
Welcome. I'm Brian Gates, and this is TRU Leader SHiFT. Our mission is to expand awareness of what's possible in life and in business. I created this show to introduce you to business leaders and life hackers so that you can learn about the pivotal moments in their lives that shifted their perspective on what it means to be successful. Asia.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. So you are a women's empowerment coach and relationship coach.
Yes.
It's fascinating. I'm excited to have you on and have you share what you do for people and what you do for women. Start talking about the power of relationships because, obviously relationships are everything in the world, right? Whether it's in our primary romantic relationship, relationships with friends, relationships in business, just in life. Relationships are such an integral part of living a happy and fulfilled life, right? So why don't you start off by telling us about what you do and what you do in the world and how you help people, how you help women. And I know you do retreats, you do group coaching, you do private coaching, you do a lot of the different things.
Yes.
So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Okay, absolutely. My mission is to take women from heartbreak to purpose. And I work with women who are going through heartbreak, or they've been single for years now and they're having a hard time finding their purpose, or they aren't sure why they're still single and why they haven't found that person yet. So I really do work with women to help them step into their power, step into their purpose, and really take action. I've been doing this ever since I went through my divorce and had my own journey. But I do a lot of this virtually. So I do the virtual coaching one-on-one for women. And then I've also hosted group coaching programs for women that are, going through divorce specifically, or they've just come out of divorce, because there's a lot of power in that community and that connection, as well as retreats.
So getting women to transition out of a relationship that likely any end of relationships can be difficult for anybody. Getting them back into their life or back into a place of being able to find a new relationship, or do you coach them into getting into a new relationship, or not, and just being and working on the relationship with themselves first?
Yes.
How do you take that?
First, it's all about cultivating that relationship with yourself.
Okay.
So absolutely 100%, the first thing we do is we work on having that self-love, that, focusing on self-worth and just really being happy and content and just really like great with who you are, right? Before reaching out to find another partner, before, if there's any sort of lack, if you're not happy with yourself, then you're not going to be happy in your next relationship. So it's really about focusing on self first.
Okay.
And then depending on where they're at, I see women all over their journey, all through their transitions. So it might just be like focusing on themselves, and then they find themselves many times, actually, they'll find themselves through our coaching switching jobs. They've come out of a relationship and they're looking at everything, and now they're ready to switch into something new.
Why is that? What happens? What
You
causes
know,
them
it's
to
a
do
great
that?
question. It's when I think we spend a lot of our time on autopilot. Sometimes we just get in this routine and we're used to, okay, I'm getting up, I'm going out for the day, I'm going to my job, I'm coming home. But when something disrupts us, like a breakup or a divorce, any sort of ending, it causes us to reflect and look at all areas of our life. And so when they're really doing that inner work and they're saying, you know what, I'm actually not happy in this job. Why am I here? And this is the perfect moment to really create whatever life you want for yourself. There's, this is the best moment.
Why is it the best moment?
So when you're going through heartbreak, or like when I went through my divorce, for example, I thought it was the worst moment,
Yeah.
the worst thing I've ever been through. But then now on the other side of it, I realized the life that I chose to create for myself, all of the healing I got to do, it was like a clean slate. You know, like I was like, okay, you know what? What I thought was never going to happen to me and what I thought at the time was the worst thing to happen to me, that was my mindset. It actually gave way to me stepping into my purpose and what I'm doing now. Had I not gone through that period, I would not be where I am today, coaching women, helping people around the world, living a new life like in Mexico City. And so, you know, when we reach rock bottom, that's when we get the chance to like come out and create something entirely new.
Awesome. So let's jump into your journey.
Okay.
'Cause- So I know that you were in a relationship for a long time. That ended, and that started a whole journey for yourselves, and you did a lot of traveling. So I mean, you have a fascinating story. So
So I was in a relationship with someone for most of my 20s for 9 years before we got married. We were already living together. And then 2.5 months into our marriage, my new husband told me that we had made a mistake to get married.
did you feel it was a mistake?
No.
Okay.
And it really, well, it turned my life upside down. You know, I actually didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my colleagues. I didn't tell anyone for a while because I thought he's just scared. We just got married. It's kind of freaking him out. He'll come around. He'll come around. And I kept trying to like change and push and thinking, you know, everything's okay. You know, putting on this exterior thing of like everything's all good. But really inside, I was freaking out, panicked, heartbroken. And so I finally came to terms with things. But it honestly took 1.5 years for that divorce to even be finalized. So during that period was when I found therapy, coaching, meditation, spirituality, because all these other things weren't working.
So it took 1.5 years. Were you guys still living together, or how did that progress?
So for the first 9 months, we technically were like still living together, but he had moved out. He was staying somewhere else.
Okay. So it was easy for you to kind of create the facade that you're still married and not tell people because you're technically kind of still living
Yeah,
together.
we didn't even file for divorce until 9 months after this conversation.
Interesting.
Because I thought maybe, you know, there's a lot of like back and forth, and I'm sure many people can relate. It can be hard to walk away from a relationship, even one that's not serving you. And during that time, I actually saw some other sides to him that I really think I was just blind to before. I was just so like excited to be in this relationship and be with this person I loved and get married that I was ignoring anything that maybe was a red flag.
So you had your life plan. You've already made up your mind. This is how it's going to be. And I'm only going to see the things that serve me related to this vision that I have for us in my life and how this is going to go.
Yes.
And then it got rocked.
It sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you were working full time. You were a marketing executive for a while, right? I know you got your MBA in international business. You worked at some really great companies along the way. So you were going to work each day with this, and you couldn't even like talk to anybody, or you chose not to talk to anybody about it. How did that go? How was that for you?
Looking back on it now, I'm kind of amazed at how I did that. I only kept that up probably for a couple of months, but I finally decided, you know, because I thought, okay, going to work is kind of like my escape. You know, I can just, again, continue in this routine. I know how to do this. I'm good at my job. I get to be with my coworkers. Everything's great. But it was awkward because people were wanting to see like wedding pictures. And it was like really fresh.
Yeah.
So I finally one day reached out to one of my colleagues because I didn't know anyone who had been through a divorce. No one in my family, none of my friends.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I do not know what I'm doing here. But one of my coworkers, she was on the marketing team. I reached out to her and asked her to go out for happy hour one day. And we were sitting there and I just started crying. And she was like, what's wrong? And so that's when it began.
The dam broke.
That's when it began. So then I started telling people. And the big lesson I learned was the more I was able to open up and share, the more it really helped in my healing. And it was helping other people along the way.
Yeah, that's powerful. Because I've been through divorce as well. And I remember the same thing, sharing with my coworkers. And I was a little different. I was very open with people pretty early on. And it was just it felt so healing to me just to be able to share and open. And I hadn't really been that vulnerable. I hadn't been vulnerable with myself up until that point. But then something like that happens and you're forced. I mean, your emotions, you can't bottle them up anymore. They're coming out, right? And and using it as an opportunity to really see what comes up. And wow, this is a whole new part of me. Like I have feelings, especially maybe it's harder, for most men, because they're told by society that you're not supposed to show emotions. So you're raised like that. So you get pretty good at not showing them, right? But you can't ignore those. I somehow get that, right?
Yeah.
And that transitional and pivotal moment that can be in a life. So, okay. And then what happened from
So
there?
going through that, I realized, you know what, I'm actually not feeling like I'm living my purpose. Like I was questioning everything. I started questioning everything. I'm going to be with this person for the rest of my life. No, I'm not. Do I need to stay in this job? Am I supposed to be here? Do I need to stay in San Diego? I've been here since college. Why not travel? And I started asking myself, like, what makes me happy? Because I was so unhappy. And I remembered that travel has always made me happy. Growing up, we did family vacations. I've been to over 40 countries. I love to travel. And so I went on a girls' trip. We went to Nicaragua for a few weeks. And I started asking people, how are you living out of a backpack? Like, what do you mean you don't have a corporate job? Like, there was a whole nother side that I never, ever had considered.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. So I came up with a plan. I moved back in with my parents. I saved up. I gave notice. I quit my job. And I bought a one-way ticket to Ecuador with a backpack. And I went and I backpacked for 1 year throughout Latin America, north all the way to Mexico City.
Wow.
Which is where I now call home.
By yourself?
By myself.
By yourself.
My first solo travels were pretty extreme. That was the first time I'd done anything like that.
When you guys you were with your ex for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So you hadn't been probably alone very much at all in your adult life, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot on that trip, a lot about myself, a lot of what it meant to just be Asia, right? Just be me, because it was always like me and my partner. And I didn't realize how much I was doing to kind of like change who I was in that relationship, because I wanted to give so much. And I think there was a lot of me that was kind of just like hidden or not really like being expressed. So once I was out and traveling, I mean, everything is like stripped away when you're living out of a backpack and taking the bus and talking with locals. And
there's no ignoring the true, authentic Asia.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Especially when you're out of your comfort zone, when you're stretched, like everything just comes to the surface, right? There's no like putting on a show. There's no hiding who you are. It's like, this is me. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And I've done solo travel, and what I love the most of it is you can't help but have a good time.
Yeah.
Because anytime you're doing something that you don't enjoy, you get to just switch and do something you want to do. Because you're not having to appease anybody else. You get to do whatever you want to do in any given moment.
Yeah.
And it's a very freeing feeling.
It is. It was
an experience.
The most free I'd felt in a very long time.
Yeah. So then you ended up in Mexico City.
Yes.
Then what?
Along the way, lots of crazy stories. We won't go into all of them.
Right.
But a pivotal moment was, so again, I was continuing to share more and more about my journey. And it was fun because I was sharing with strangers, and I had this fear of being judged. And I also felt like this too in the corporate world, like I needed to always show up a certain way, because if you show weakness or something, like people are going to attack. So on this trip, I was playing around with like, what does it look like just to like tell my story? Like, hi, I'm 32, 33. I just went through a divorce, and I'm meeting all of these backpackers that are like 20, 25 years old. And they were just like, wow. They just were like so fascinated by my story.
Right.
And
You've lived so much of your life.
yeah, they're like, what was the 80s like, Asia? 80s. Yeah. So it was really fun. And when I got to Nicaragua, I connected with someone, and she was from Seattle, actually. And she was also had just gone through a divorce, and she was traveling. And she said, have you ever considered becoming a life coach? I said, what's that? I didn't even like really know what like life coaching meant. And I looked into it. We started talking, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm meant to be doing. I get to use this experience to help other women like create whatever they want on the other side of what might feel like the worst moment of their life. So I returned to the United States after that trip and did some coaching certifications, just kind of continued on my path, hired coaches. And then after I launched my business, I moved to Mexico City officially. Yeah.
So why did you go back to Mexico City?
I love Mexico City.
Why?
Oh my gosh. Have you been?
I have not.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of good things.
Yeah. So I had never like lived in a huge city. And so that was something, I'm just like using this period of my life to try things I've never done before. So I was so comfortable in San Diego. I was like, why? I don't need to stay here. And so I actually considered Colombia too. I mean, I was like, I just want to go somewhere completely different. I love the Latin culture. It's so warm and welcoming. I majored in Spanish in college, actually, as well. So I had this knowledge, and I wanted to continue to practice and use my Spanish. And I just picked Mexico City. One of the girls I went to grad school with, she was from Mexico City. And so I knew one person there, and she was like,
that's important.
She said, it's so perfect for a single entrepreneur. Like, you're going to love it here. And I said, okay, sold. What I love about it is it's exactly that. Like you can find anything you want in Mexico City. I mean, there's like co-working spaces. It's like any city, like amazing restaurants, gourmet food. You're paying a fraction of the price for everything. There's parks, there's museums. I think it has the second most museums of any city in the world.
Oh, wow.
After London, I believe.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there's just so much culture there. It's really fun. It's like every day is kind of like an adventure. I don't know. It just like continues to kind of push me a little bit and challenge me, but it's where I call home.
That's great. Yeah. And then you've built your business from Mexico City. You did your training here in the States, and then you went down back there. And are your clients located in Mexico City, or are you mostly digital?
Digital.
Okay.
So I have most of my clients right now in the United States.
Okay.
But I do speak with women from all over, like from Australia to Europe. I do coaching in English right now. I would love to like open it up into Spanish one day as well too. So it's interesting because coaching isn't as developed in Mexico yet. There's a lot of women down there that could definitely use support as well. Yeah. So the coaching I do is virtual, and I love it. So I can do it from, I come back to San Diego often to visit friends and family. I've hosted retreats here and like VIP days with my clients. So very mobile.
That's that's an awesome story, and I'm sure you have endless stories about that year when you were backpacking around.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. So this transition that you're helping women with in this, because there's a lot, people go through transitions all the time in their lives, right? And you're right now specifically working with people that are going through this transition out of divorce, and that's what you're leading with. And I would guess there's a lot of parallels to other transitions that people have in their lives. And same kind of thing of stripping of identity. Talk about midlife crisis. People go through that. It's a stripping of their identity of, who they thought they were, and they kind of go through something similar. So, it's interesting that people go through this process. So describe what that process looks like for some people. What is it that happens to them that gets them into this transition? I'm not going to call it a dark place because maybe it's not for everybody, but walk us through kind of what some stages are and steps are throughout that transition, and then getting them back up to, a good spot where they're actually more focused, because you take it from pain to purpose. Is that right? Yeah. So talk about that journey.
Yeah. So it could be coming out of a job, whether it was your choice or not, right? That's another example, like of a big transition where you're like, what's next? And a lot of women come to me completely confused and angry. Like, why is this happening to me, right? Not yet seeing, how is this happening for me?
Okay.
And so we start there and like kind of dig and dig and dig, because a lot of times, like, I felt the same way. I felt like, oh, this person is doing this to me, right? I wasn't taking any responsibility for what was happening. So whether it's walking away from a job or a relationship, like, it takes more than one person. Like, nothing's really happening to you. So changing that mindset and helping them feel, it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to feel whatever it is, and don't stuff it down. Because oftentimes that's another thing I see with women. They'll come in and they're so used to living a certain way, like kind of on that autopilot, or taking care of someone or whatever it is, and not putting themselves first. This is the moment where we get to say, hey, now it's all about you. And they're like, what do you mean this is all about me? They're still so focused on that transition of like what happened to them or what someone did to them.
Yeah.
So going there.
So that's got to be, and I would imagine that's uncomfortable for some, especially the people that, if you have a personality of always giving, often that's attached with some sense of kind of a lack of worthiness, right? They want to give. They don't feel worthy of receiving. And now there's no one really to give to anymore, and it's time to look at myself and give to myself. I imagine they have to get over or kind of work through maybe some issues related to feeling like they deserve to work on themselves, invest in themselves, hire a coach, get some help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Many of us weren't raised that way, or culturally that's not really, like, we don't think sometimes that it's okay to focus on ourselves. Like, sometimes I almost feel like self-love and self-care has gotten like a bad rap. People are thinking like, oh, it's selfish. Or they think it's just, getting a massage or something, but not really like doing that inner journey and doing the inner work. And that's what I guide women through is, taking the time out, like morning routines, right? That sets you up for the entire day. And so many people aren't even doing that. So now it's like, how can we create something, a practice that's beneficial for you, to go inside through meditation, to stop and do some breath work, to journal. Journaling is huge too, right? To really kind of like figure out what's going on underneath it all, and then how we can reprogram the subconscious and reframe things to step into this place of, okay, so what's next? And a lot of times people don't even know what's next because they're so used to what was before. And so, right, focusing on yourself, you're like, okay, well, I don't know what's next. They're used to someone telling them what's next.
Yeah. Yeah, and I heard this recently that I really liked. It's not selfish, it's self-giving, right? So reframing things that we do for ourselves as self-giving versus selfish. Because you can fall into that of, I'm okay, I got a massage, I went and did this, I journal, I did all these things just for myself, and it's it's a Saturday, maybe half the day's gone. All I've done was focus on myself. Well, you can take that two ways. You can say, that's great, I just filled my cup and now I get to go out and live my life. Or you can be hard on yourself and kind of feel guilty about it.
Right.
So I get that.
And it's important to remember or to understand that you can't give from an empty cup. You got to fill yours first.
Yeah.
Love yourself first. Really, like, be good here before you give to your other relationships, whether it's, at work, your partner, with your kids, or just your friends even.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, and that's important no matter where you are in life, right? Of that self-giving piece, not just during this transition part. I know for a lot of people, and for myself included, going through a transition helped me realize how beneficial it is to do these self-giving things, to fill my own cup. And because it really expands your gifts that you have to give to the world. The ability to tap into more information, to creativity, to be incredibly present with the person you're with, to be empathetic. That it essentially raises your emotional intelligence so that you can how you're feeling, but you can also pick up on how other people are feeling, and you're way more effective in how you communicate with them. People can feel your presence, so they're drawn to you in a different way. And whether that's, again, it's all relationships, whether it's romantic, whether it's in business, friendships, family, whatever that is, it makes a huge difference.
100%.
And it starts with that self-giving, that self-love. If you don't love yourself, it's hard to love others, right?
Right.
All right, so then that's where they are in the journey. How do they get how do you get them back and ramped up into and focused on that purpose and figured out? I mean, purpose is a big topic, right? Like we could
Yes.
spend a lot of time just on that. So how do you take them through that journey?
Through a lot of different exercises, through a lot of reflection. And then I'm just thinking back to one of the VIP days I had with my clients. We were doing a journaling exercise, and this is really cool. And I had them write down different things like what do you love doing? Like what lights you up, right? It can be anything. I love running, I love traveling, I love connecting with people, right? Just whatever it is. What are some of your talents and gifts? Also could be connecting with people. Maybe you've got a knack for like business, or what are skills, what's knowledge that you've picked up along the way, whatever it is. And so we were doing different lists like this, and then kind of like highlighting things, circling things that stood out, and starting to craft some sort of idea of what this dream life could look like. And
That's awesome.
I had one of my clients at the time, she was writing it all down, and we were having like a one-on-one session, and she said, I'm having a hard time focusing on the near future because I just can't, it's hard for me to even see this being possible right now. So I like to think, 1, 3 year, whatever, and future. I said, okay, but just write down whatever it is that you want to do. Like if you could be doing anything taking from this. And she's like, well, I'd really want to be working in this field, living in this place. And we said, okay, great. And just a couple weeks ago, she's like, Asia, you will never believe this. I just landed my dream job.
Oh, wow.
And she applied for something where she was like, okay, like this is my dream job, but I don't really have the exact experience, so I'm not sure I'll even get the interview. She got the interview, she was going through the process, and then she picked up and moved to California, where now she's starting this completely, again, new life through this transitional period. And she said she looked back and she was like, I can't believe it. It was everything, like through all the work we did together, like I can't believe it just happened.
Wow.
And like you did that.
That's great.
You know?
So what is that? How does that work?
Having support is huge, right? Like, reach out to people that, whether it's a coach or someone who's doing what you want to be doing, right? And just start talking to people and just open your mind to possibilities.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I believe like in magic or whatever you want to call it, like the power of the universe. And so when you have your heart on something and you start to like believe it, or you just journal about it and then like tuck it away, like it's still like in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And it's fascinating how that works of journaling, because I've done that exercise in a different way, and then you look back and you say, wow, I've created that. I did a vision called a mind movie, part of a Joe Dispenza workshop that I did. And he had us do these mind movies. Joe Dispenza, he's like had a leading edge research, kind of the science behind meditation and the energy centers in the body. And he puts on these workshops. And for one of them, he had us do a mind movie. And it's essentially a vision board, but through a movie. And I put this image of where I was going to live. And the caption was, I love where I live. And it was this image of the ocean and, waves crashing along some cliffs. And I'm like, okay, this isn't, I'll just put it in there. It doesn't look like anything around California, and I'm not leaving California, but I'll put it in there because it looks like a beautiful place. Yeah. 2 months later, I ended up moving and I moved to Bird Rock in La Jolla. And 2 weeks after I moved in, I was walking with my girlfriend, and we got to the end of the street at the ocean, and I looked to the left, and it was not the exact, but pretty much that same exact photo right there.
That's amazing.
I didn't even know that existed in California. And it was like, even the topography and the way the land jetted out and the waves were crashing, I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Oh my gosh.
I just tears came to my eyes. I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. I just created this.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I actually manifested the house I'm living in right now too.
Did you?
Yes.
How fun is that?
It's so fun. I took a picture. I was walking through Mexico City, and I was in the neighborhood I wanted to live in, and like the exact intersection. And I was like, I love it here. And I took a picture of this house, and I was like, wow, I would love to live here one day. And I posted it on my Instagram story, went about my day, and then basically someone connected me to someone. I just started talking to people. And I had someone tell me, okay, Where do you want to live? Oh, yeah, I want to live in Roma Norte. I think I know someone who's looking for a roommate. Okay. 2 weeks later, she sends me his contact info and the same picture that I had taken.
Oh, wow.
This is a picture of the house. He's expecting to hear from you. And I was like, no. And that's where I live now.
Wow.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I love that. It's such a powerful thing when you just get clear on what you want in your life, in any aspect of your life, and write it down. And I mean, it's just like, I recently bought a Jeep. Ever since I started looking at Jeeps, all of a sudden, every car I see on the road is a Jeep. It's the same kind of thing, right? Like, it's not rocket science. It's not woo-woo stuff. It's just, it happens to us all the time. Whatever we put our attention on, we attract.
Yep.
It comes into our awareness. And with that awareness, like your example of the woman finding that job, and, if someone shows themselves in her world that might be good to talk to get her into that field or into that job, she's now, because she's more aware of that, she's going to notice and maybe strike up that conversation, or actually apply for that job. Even if it's not the dream job that she has in mind, in the future, maybe it's getting her along that path. So
Right.
you're going to go after that. It's going to be in your awareness more. It really is kind of common sense. It's put something into your awareness and you're going to attract more of that. And I also think there's, the magic and the mystical behind that. There's something bigger going on there as well, for sure. But yeah, it's a powerful journey. Okay, so that's what else in order to get clear on purpose and to, because this is an ever evolving journey.
I think a lot of it is also spending time alone, spending time with yourself and not running around doing all the busy things. Because we're very good at that. We're very good at keeping busy so you don't have to sit with our own thoughts. And so whether that's doing a visualization meditation, I find that to be really powerful. There's one I was doing every single day. It was about 15 minutes. One of my mentors recommended it to me. I was just listening to it on YouTube. And they have you start with what you're grateful for, which is how I start my day each day anyway.
Awesome.
I like to do an audio note, but you can write it down, whatever you like. So getting into that feeling of gratitude, being grateful for everything you have already, and then getting to visualize and think about, okay, like now you're on this journey and where are you? And allowing your mind to wander. Because when you get grounded and when you're feeling grateful and feeling good, and you just have that moment alone with yourself, more clarity will start to come.
Yeah.
But you have to get quiet and still first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I love that. For me, it's solo road trips.
Ooh.
And just kind of taking it and getting out into nature. And I think for me, it takes a few days. It depends on where I am. If I'm in kind of go mode, it takes a couple of days to fully unwind, and then things just start to come. Right?
I love what you said. Yes, healing and finding your purpose through adventure. That got me thinking because that's something I'm really passionate about.
Awesome.
Solo travel is something I'm very passionate about. So I feel like we're really connected on that. And I think it's something that many people have yet to try, or they think it needs to be this big thing, right? They're like, I'm not going to quit my job and travel for a year, or I don't want to go be in nature by myself. That sounds scary. Well, what else can you do? What else can that look like? Because when you start to move outside your comfort zone and you start to see things in a different way, or go somewhere you've never been before, and you spend that time alone, right? Like you said it earlier, you can't hide from yourself.
Yeah.
When you're like by yourself, traveling by yourself,
Yeah.
you'll learn a lot. You'll get some clarity.
Especially if you make that as the intention.
Right.
Because you
Right.
can, if you really want to hide from yourself, you can. You can go on a trip. You can, go to the bars, start drinking. You can numb yourself out in a lot of different ways. You can still be on your phone if you want.
Right.
You could, whatever.
Yeah.
You could hide from yourself. But by making that the intention, that's where I think the magic comes. And sitting with the discomfort sometimes, because you're going to be lonely, bored, you're going to have certain thoughts come through your head that you're going to want to numb yourself out in some way, but just sitting in it, right? And allowing it and knowing that those aren't bad feelings. They're just feelings.
Right.
Right.
Feeling a feeling for 90 seconds will transform it. That's something I learned from Gabby Bernstein. So if you're feeling like anxious, for example, just like allow yourself to sit and breathe. Like notice where you're feeling it. So for me, a lot of times it's in my chest or it's in my stomach.
Okay.
Like
Mine's right here in my
Okay.
abdomen, upper abdomen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just breathe into that. If you can, close your eyes and just breathe, and maybe put your hands over your heart or wherever it is that you're feeling it, and breathe, and you'll slowly notice that it just kind of, well, it transformed into something else. You're moving the energy. But when you ignore it and you numb out and you drink, or you just like, I don't know, run off and do something else, you're stuffing it down, and that's toxic. But you resist persists, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So talk more about the benefits of getting out into, getting into adventure, and why is that so healing?
yeah. So on my trip, I did all these things that I never even thought I could do, or never even thought I wanted to do. Like the other year, I went out to Ecuador again, and I summited Cotopaxi volcano, which is 19,347 feet.
Wow.
I am not a mountaineer. I am not. Like, I have no training in this. So,
So hopefully you did some preparation.
like a few days of just like hiking at like 12,000 feet, 14,000 feet.
Wow.
So I hired a guide. He gave me the crampons. We were roped together. It was on a glacier.
Yeah. It's just on a glacier.
I know. It's just like, and so this story is pretty cool. So I sitting at like the second base camp where you wait before you go. It's around 16,000 feet. It's really hard to sleep at 16,000 feet. So I had a lot of time just like freezing and drinking tea and journaling and visualizing. And I was, drawing myself at the top of the mountain, writing on these affirmations, and just like envisioning myself there. The night before I went up, there was a crazy storm. I could hear the wind. I saw all these people come out, and then one by one, they were all coming back, and no one summited. So the next day, I was like, okay, think positive, think positive. Went out. There were 100 of us that started. It was the holiday weekend. A lot of people wanted to go, so including the guides. So it's either one or two person per guide.
Okay.
And so we started off, and it was completely dark, midnight. It was windy.
You start at midnight?
Yes.
Wow.
You can't be on it for too long during the day because the glacier can melt and you will go. Yeah. So you get to start in the middle of the night.
You weren't kidding when you say adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is extreme, but there's a good lesson in this.
Okay.
So I was going, like, you're literally stepping like step, because you're so high, like breathing, everything just takes exponential effort. And so I was getting hit in the face with hail. And I was like, okay, can you handle this? I can handle this, okay. We're going, my guide is like, how are you doing? Good. We would stop. He would give me some tea. Are you cold? Yes. Okay, we go. I'm like, okay, we go. And we go. And everyone was passing us, and I was getting kind of frustrated. I'm like, just trust. But then we kept going, and I noticed all the headlamps started turning around. People were going back. And I looked, and I was like, there's no one there.
What do you mean?
Everyone had turned around because it's difficult.
Except for you guys?
So I thought at that point,
Okay.
I didn't see anyone else. And he's like, we just have to have faith. He said, I don't know what the weather is going to do, but we just need to trust in our hearts and have faith that we can get there. I'm like, okay, I trust you. Have faith. Going. And all I was focusing on in that moment was exactly what I was doing, right? My mind wasn't running into all these other places. I was just focusing on like having faith and getting to the top of the mountain. And eventually one guide came with two men behind him, and we're like, wow, now there's 5 of us. So together we made it. We summited. All 5 of us made it to the top.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of drama of how I got there. I was falling to my knees. I was pulling on his rope. He was trying to get me up because I was just like ready to be done. And he's like, no, you can do this. I'm
Wow.
like, I can. So on the way back down, it was even harder for me. I think I was just so relieved because at the top, there was still a storm. There was no visibility. There was no grand like view or anything, time for photos. He was like, okay, we go now. Because it was just like, we got to go. It took you 7 hours to get up here. We're going back down now. So we are literally running down, and I just was like crying, and I just had all these feelings. And then like I had this moment where a wave of forgiveness just washed over me for my ex-husband.
Wow.
And the crazy thing is I was like, I thought I forgave him a long time ago. I've been doing all this work, right? And I realized there are layers. right? You can
Yeah.
forgive someone, you can continue, and then something else might come up that triggers you, right? You can find yourself in a new relationship or another challenge. And so I just had this beautiful wave of forgiveness wash over me, and I was like, I am totally at peace now with everything. I just had this profound realization. It came out of nowhere. But really what it was is I was just completely focused on being present and not letting like all of this other stuff get in the way. And I think whatever needed to come up was just ready to come up.
So it was by being present and stripping away everything else that it allowed for whatever needed to come up, right?
Exactly.
So it just kind of gets you in a space, in a mindset, in a presence, in a stillness that allows these things that are really deep to make their way to the surface,
Right.
and pass through you. So was that the final healing for that relationship, or are there more layers?
I'll let you know as they unfold. But I really do think that it's a journey.
Yeah.
And it's a process. And, you know, sometimes things still come up. I'm like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not judging it as like good or bad, right or wrong, but some things will continue to come up. Like, especially as like I'm deepening my relationship with my boyfriend right now. Like, that's the first really serious relationship I've been in since my divorce. And that brings up all sorts of things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Which is a gift.
It's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear that a lot from people of, you know what, this just came up for me of a past event or relationship, whatever it is. I thought that was long, in my past. I didn't think I still had, I've heard it referred to as kind of energetic cords to something or someone from your past that you ideally try to sever and move on, and heal, right? Heal from. It's fascinating how we just have these layers.
Have you ever done a cord cutting ceremony?
I actually did.
Me too.
Yeah. Did you do that for the end of your marriage?
Yes.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
I actually,
so I did
this is how cool my therapist is in San Diego. She recommended a shaman in San Diego. And I went to her and we did a cord cutting ceremony.
Awesome.
And then, of course, other things came up that I was like, where did that come from? So that's the beauty in doing this work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I've never met anybody else who's done a cord cutting ceremony.
Wow.
Yeah, I did it with a recent ex, and we did that. We went through that process, and it was powerful. Let's talk about, because you came from the business world.
Yep.
And you were in the corporate world for 10 plus years. And so now you're doing this relationship work, which I think the combination of those two things are really powerful. So talk about what you see possible for people that are in business, whether they lead a business, whether they're in a business, what's possible for them by fostering the relationship for themselves, and then in turn being able to have better relationships with everybody else that they come in contact with.
So when we get to that place of operating and living from our authentic self, that's when we have the most genuine relationships. So I've seen in the corporate world, and I was operating from this place, like I mentioned earlier, of like, okay, I need to behave this way because this is what people expect of me. This is like the corporate world. I can't really be that vulnerable. A lot of people pleasing, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I want this person to like me, so I better do this for them, or I don't want my boss to think I'm slacking off, so I better like work like crazy to get this done. Whatever it is, whatever the story is you're creating for yourself, you're really just making it harder on yourself, and you're creating unnecessary stress. And if you can come from a place of authenticity, so doing all those things that we talked about to really like remove any of those layers that aren't serving you, remove like, okay, I need to show up as a perfectionist. Like, I mean, that's not true. Who said you need to be perfect? There's no such thing as that. Then connecting, you're going to deepen your connection, and people are going to respond to you in the same way. So how you show up, the intention you go in with, to a conversation with your boss, to like leading a meeting, to whatever it is, how you show up is how other people are going to receive that and perceive you, right? It's a mirror.
Yes. Yeah, and often we, like you said, do things to help please others, or it's some type of insecurity that's driving us to make us, again, I need to be perfect in order to be good enough. I need to be, the smartest person in the room to feel good enough. I need people to think that I'm the smartest person in the room and give me that validation for me to feel like I'm worthy of even being here. Because if we aren't coming from a place of from a true self-worth and self-love and really just kind of confidence in who we are authentically, then we will go and show up in that way, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I agree that when you do come from a place of true confidence and self-love, people feel that. And it's contagious, and people are drawn to that. And you're going to be way more effective in your work
Right.
because you get to bring out your own genius. You get to say what comes through you and not do it through some filter of, oh, how are they going to perceive this? How am I going to look? Is this going to be, if it's counter to what everyone else is saying, are they going to, look down upon me or be frustrated with me? If you don't care and you don't need their validation, you get to be your true authentic self, and you add a lot of value with every interaction that you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You get to step into your full leadership potential, and you get to lead others through inspiration.
Yeah.
Right? That's really inspiring when you're coming from a place of who you really are instead of trying to put on a show or be who you think you need to be.
Yeah.
People can feel that, people can see that, but when you're coming from a place through your heart, you're really going to inspire people, and people, like you said, they're going to be drawn to you.
Yeah.
You'll be more effective in your communication and how you're handling everything day to day at work.
And as a leader, the people that you lead, if you lead an organization, the more that you are leaning into your true authentic self and you're being who you are, the more allowing you are of everyone else on your team to do that. You're giving them permission. You're actually helping and coaching and mentoring them along the way just by you doing it for yourself. I see a lot of business leaders and CEOs that are doing their own personal development work. With them doing their work as they evolve in their journey, their team is evolving at the same time. They don't even need to do anything. It's not like they even need to encourage the rest of the team to do their own stuff. But by watching the leader, and they just feel that leader from a subconscious level, being authentic and just having that connection, that energy really helps to evolve the entire team. And it's a really powerful thing. And that's when you start to get to have a really trusting culture. And a culture of, where healthy conflict, people will come up with their own viewpoints. Because if the leader is secure in themselves, if someone opposes their view, if they're secure in themselves, they're going to welcome that.
Right. Welcome.
They're going to say, thank you for challenging me. That's awesome. You have your own ideas.
Exactly.
If they're not coming from that place, if they do have some insecurity, they're going to feel threatened. And it's not going to be encouraged. And all of a sudden you have a bunch of sheep. They're all doing what you say and trying not to piss you off and make sure that your ego doesn't come out and, whip them essentially and keep them,
right.
Say, I need you to act and be a certain way because that's what makes me feel safe as the leader, versus, getting past that.
Yeah.
And you can create something special.
That's not an environment for growth or for innovation, right? So keeping that in mind as well. If you feel afraid, if there's some fear, there's some tiptoeing around, how are you really going to create a high performing team and get those results?
Yeah, awesome. I love this stuff. Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. I know you're doing some great things in the world and helping many, many people. So it's great. I love watching the content that you put out. What is the best way for people to find you?
They can find me on my website at asiadawn.co.
Okay.
And on Instagram, I'm very active on Instagram at asiadawn_. And there I'm always sharing stories, giving tips, talking about all of this stuff. And that's where they can get info on my upcoming retreats or how they can work with me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Asia.
Thank you.
It's been great.